What's up, guys? Chasing up New Age Revolution down here in the cave for a quick introduction of what is to come. You are going to... I've done it. I have done my first interview, and I think it was fine. It just went a heck of a lot longer than I expected. Anyway, I'll tell you the backstory, then you guys can sit in for the interview. It is over the phone because my guest was at a cafe, and it probably wouldn't have worked out too well to do Zoom. And plus, I was sort of unfamiliar with Zoom, and I didn't want to mess it up, and I didn't want to, send the wrong invite or whatever. So we did it over phone. It works fine. The sound is fine. So here's how this happened. My man TK over from the AWA REMCO Facebook group, who has, who I met through this channel, and his guys. My man Shane D, as you have heard me mention, the second generation sensation, Brian Hardy, all those guys have been so kind and so generous to me, gifting me some figures and just staying in contact with me. But anyway, he reached out to me and said, we talked about this new line of figures coming out from called Powertown, and they're Greg Gagne and Steve Rosenthal, and I later found out Magnum TA are part of this conglomerate to produce these figures. And long story short, my man TK put me in touch with Steve Rosenthal, who is the former vice president of marketing at REMCO and the man who is responsible for producing the first U.S. wrestling figures, the AWA REMCO figures. They are Steve Rosenthal's brainchild. He has sat in front of Vince McMahon, and he has sat in front of Vern Gagne. He has sat in front of the Road Warriors and Ric Flair, and you'll hear all those stories on this interview coming up. Anyway, he graciously agreed to come on and do an interview. I asked him for 20 minutes of his time. He put aside an hour. We did an hour interview. The first half hour is about his time at REMCO and some other fun stuff, and then the second part of the interview is his new adventures, his new venture with Greg Gagne and the new figures coming out. There's a lot of photos of those new figures coming out. There's links below for the website to check out those photos. It's a Kickstarter campaign, but they've got 200 signees already. Right? A lot of weird things are happening in the world, in the wrestling figure industry. 200 signees have already jumped on board to get their figures produced. Then he promised or stated, he's a very kind person. He said that he will try to get Greg Gagne and Magnum TA here on the show for interviews. Wow. These will be Zoom interviews. We need to see their faces. This is incredible. I couldn't believe it. I said, no way, this is crazy. And he says, after our interview was over, which you'll see, we end the interview, we talk for a little bit afterwards, and I said, wow, if you really got, Greg Gagne or Magnum TA. And he said, hang on a second. And he three-way called Greg Gagne. And I was speaking to Greg Gagne down here in the cave, just flabbergasted, and I was like, hello. I was like, what? Like, what did you just do? Mr. Rosenthal, what did you just do? And Greg Gagne's like, hello, did you mean to call me? Is this the wrong number? We were laughing back and forth. It was incredible. I was talking to Greg Gagne. Down here in the cave, and I quite possibly, Steve told me that he already sent it to the PR department to schedule the interviews with the New 80s Revolution and Greg Gagne and the New 80s Revolution and freaking Magnum TA. So I don't know. I'll wait for that, notification email to come through. Whatever. That's crazy. That's otherworldly for me. But the good news is I felt comfortable with the interview, and I think I'm going to reach out to that WWF worker again and get him on, and this could be fun, especially, wow, great. Anyway, the interview, there's no footage because it's a phone call. I've put an hour's worth of photos in the interview. Here's what you need to do. You need to treat it as a podcast. Put it in your ears. There's nothing to see except pictures. The second half of the interview, you're going to want to look at the pictures because they're of his new figures coming out, the Powertown figures. Check those out. But listen to it in your ears. Listen to it as a podcast. It's an hour long, and I'm giving it to you in its full hour format. No edits, no need for them. The interview flowed smoothly. Thanks for all of you guys encouraging me to do this. It went awesomely. Anyway, Jason up, New 80s Revolution here. We have probably one of the coolest shows I've ever done. You guys know how I've been wanting to talk, do some interviews, do some shoot interviews with people in the wrestling business. I think I've gone one step better than that. I've got somebody who was responsible for some of our favorite toys, certainly some of our favorite wrestling figures from 1980s. I'm talking about the AWA REMCO wrestlers. We all love them. I've got with me Steve Rosenthal. He is the former VP of marketing at REMCO. And he is the current one half of the current brainchild behind the new Powertown wrestling action figures that are hopefully coming out this year. And Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Jason, it's my pleasure.
All right, so I wanted to get right into. I wanted to get into the past. I wanted to go back. I'm sure that you've had a chance to sit around and watch every single episode of my show over the past 2 weeks. So you're right. So you know that we on this channel on YouTube we're huge fans of the 80s. In particular, we're huge fans of 80s toys, and more in particular, we're huge fans of wrestling figures. And you know, myself, so many memories wrapped up in the AWA REMCO line. How, you know, I'm a fan of toys, obviously, from a kid standpoint, from a collector standpoint. How on earth, what is the path that gets you to working for REMCO?
Well, I'll try to make this as brief as I can. But when I graduated college, I actually was in health and beauty aids. I started as a product manager with a company called Menin. Menin's brands included Skin Bracer, Protein 21 shampoo, just a ton of stuff. It was a local company, a local men's health and beauty aids company in Morristown, New Jersey, and I am a Jersey boy all my life.
Okay.
From Menin, I went to Cheeseboro Ponds, located in Connecticut. I became a brand manager on something that was fondly known as Vickle, which is Vaseline Intensive Care Lotion, Vaseline Intensive Care Bath Beads, that kind of situation. And what happened was that in the late 70s, I graduated college in 1970, Ideal Toys was looking to expand their distribution, and I guess they felt from a recruitment standpoint that the best guys to get were guys who were in health and beauty aids, because we literally sold everybody from supermarkets to drugstores, you name it, we sold it. So I was recruited to Ideal Toys in sales and product management. And the first item, in fact, the first day that I started at Toy Fair, having no idea what to expect, how it would go, where it would go, what I'd be doing, I walk off the elevator, and coming on the elevator was Evel Knievel. And I said to him, and I walked right into his I guess it was called the Skyrocket, or whatever it was called, which is, quote, the rocket ship that, that he tried to jump over Snake River Canyon. And Evel, told me a whole bunch of stories. And when you looked inside this cockpit, all it was a kitchen chair with a handle, and the handle was for the parachute. And I said, you got to be out of your mind. And he says, I totally am. And I spent time with Evel, really got to understand the licensing end of the business from everything that happened with Evel. And at that time, and I remember the item number like it was yesterday, item number 3407, maybe up till the wrestling figures and Karate Kid, it was probably the single hottest item I ever sold. I was at Ideal for 2 years, and I made a presentation at a pre-Toy Fair day that was, I don't know when but I know it was only 2 years after I left, and I made a presentation at Toys R Us. Long story short, I get a call 2 days later from an executive vice president. His name is Cy Ziv, who passed away only a couple of years ago, who's just a fantastic guy.
Yes.
And Cy said that you got to go down to REMCO. I've got some people you want to meet, and the rest is history. And I spent 18, almost 20 years with REMCO Toys.
Outstanding. So the meeting with Evel Knievel, the chance meeting coming off an elevator, led to much bigger things, led to huge things that you probably didn't expect.
Well, yeah, it was a little bit, a little bit different than selling, hand cream and aftershave and all of that kind of stuff. And the toy business is the entertainment business. So you're selling toys to kids, and there's a profit motive involved. Every day is different. Every year there's a different line. Every year there's a different reason for bringing up a different toy. And then, licensing comes into play. And I must have spent, I would say maybe 3-4 months a year on the West Coast, in LA, working with the major studios, putting together and negotiating deals for REMCO. And it was the toy business, the love of my life. I mean, I thought, like The Godfather, I thought that I was out, but then they pulled me back in.
Oh, so, yes.
It's an incredible business.
Yes, because you're about to re-enter the toy business. We'll talk about that. Well, first of all, I'm looking at, so my collection expands pretty much, it went from toys to any 80s product that, that meant anything to me or brought back nostalgia. I'm looking right now at a 4-pack The Gift Collection by Menon right now on a shelf of mine. I have a
what is it again?
It is a 4-piece gift collection box by Menon. I've got Skin Bracer. Yeah,
right.
I've got a men's 4-pack.
I know. In fact, I can remember that you got, if I think correctly, one bottle, of course, was the traditional green bottle. Then you had another bottle that was almost like, I think, kind of brownish. It was like a. But I know the item very well. I know the 4-pack. It was a Christmas 4-pack.
You've nailed it. It's green, 2 browns, and a black. You got it. All right. So I'm thinking, the Evel Knievel set, that toy, for me it was like, I was only born in '76, but I think Toys of the 60s was that, that full-size G.I. Joe. And then, Toys of the 70s for boys' toys, it was definitely that Evel Knievel set. That was something that every kid had to have.
100%. 100%. Evel Knievel stunt cycle was, first of all, it was an incredible item. It was a lot of fun. It was a great toy. Had great commercials. The toy, a lot of toys that you see in a commercial, unfortunately, don't always do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
When you take them off the shelf and you take them out of the box and you try to play with them. But the stunt cycle was the real deal, and I just can't tell you. I can't begin to tell you how hot it was. I mean, there have been the Cabbage Patch dolls,
right.
There have been the Furbies and stuff like that. But back in the late '70s, that whole Evel Knievel situation, especially after he tried to jump Snake Canyon, and we were all there. It was a very short-lived jump, but that was incredible. And that was my first experience with action figures. That was something that I took along with me when I went to REMCO.
Well, we've talked about it on this channel. We've talked about where did the toy craze begin, and I would always pinpoint Cabbage Patch dolls, like you mentioned, because that's what I was around for. I wasn't around for the Evel Knievel, but you're saying this is when toys became a hot commodity.
Well, here's the thing. I was in the toy business from 1976 to, I still am, till 2018 when I sold my business before I got back into it recently. And if you talk to the generation that I was in, the whole business has changed dramatically. Okay. The reason it's changed most specifically is there's not many customers anymore. I mean, you could spend 2 weeks just in New York City, calling on, various different customers.
Right.
They're gone. They're just all gone. And even some of the ones that are still in existence don't carry toys. My business partner, and he's been my partner and my dearest friend since the 80s, is a fellow by the name of Don Robbins. And Don Robbins was Senior Vice President of International Merchandising for Toys R Us. Started with Toys R Us as a kid out of high school. But Donnie is we've been friends forever, and Donnie is in this new venture with me. And the experience of calling on Toys R Us in the 80s and in the 90s, I can't begin to tell you, what it was like, and the camaraderie between the buyers and the salesmen. The orders were, you could literally walk in to Toys R Us and you would walk out with an order for $1 million pieces of an item. Okay, I mean, I had an item back in the 80s called Frizzlies, which was a knockoff of Squirmels, if you remember what a Squirmel was.
Sure.
And it was that little like it was like a worm that was on a monofilament. And I can remember Toys R Us buying into about 100,000 pieces to start off, and right in the middle of Toy Fair, as our TV was running, Ron Tuckman came in and gave me an order for 1 million pieces. So, but that'll never happen again. It's changed dramatically. Nobody's given 1 million pieces of anything.
Well, in talking about changing times, it had to have been crushing for you that Toys R Us ended here in the U.S.
Absolutely. I mean, Toys R Us is my bread and butter. I just saw my condo down in Florida here where I live. It's filled with giraffes. Because, they were so responsible for my successes. And they were also responsible for some stress, but mostly for my successes. But yeah, it was heartbreaking to see that go away. But what happened is, as they got into the 2000s, back in the day when Charles Lazarus was still there, was intimately involved, and came to every Toy Fair presentation. The company eventually was run by the banks. And the banks influenced everything they did, every dollar that they spent, every SKU that they purchased. And, eventually was taken over by hedge funds. And, the hedge funds, generally speaking, they take something over and their goal is to sell it. And unfortunately, they ran it into the ground. And the only thing that's still around is some stores internationally, and Toys R Us Canada, which my partner Donnie Robbins opened up, is still functioning. And yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking when TRU went away. It really was.
That's a tough blow, I think, for for everybody. But 80s kids in particular, toys were such a huge part of our life, and that has to go back to why you were, signing orders for 100, 1 million pieces at a toy fair, because of how valuable and important they were to our lives back then. And like you've said, we're just morphing into something else, and unfortunately, that industry, I don't think it's dying, but there's a reason why Toys R Us isn't here. There's a reason why Lionel went out of business.
Kitty City,
sure,
right.
Child World or Circus World, obviously the KB stores in the mall. Mm-hmm. It's sad. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a lot of friends, a lot of guys that I'm still friendly with them now. A lot of guys moved on to, one guy became extremely involved in Marvel, came out of KB. A lot of guys, of course, when Circus World went out of business, they basically all came over to either KB or Toys R Us. Lionel, Kitty City, one of my buddies over there became president of Mattel. So, everybody did well, but the days of the Lionel Leisures, the Kitty Cities, the KB, the Toys R Us's, the Caldors, the Ames, it's gone. It's history.
It is.
Not what it was.
It's 1984. The toy world obviously is booming, but something else is booming now. It's gone from, a territorial small town thing. It's blowing up. It's becoming this worldwide international thing. Professional wrestling is going nuts in 1983, 1984. How does REMCO get involved with wrestling?
What happened was, we had just come off REMCO in our day. We had a lot of original product. We did a lot of great things. We had a lot of successes, but we never missed out on an opportunity. And one of the opportunities that we had was we saw that when Mattel introduced Masters of the Universe or He-Man, either one, I went and licensed something called the Warlords from DC Comics. And same body, but that same muscular, roided out physique, same size, great story. And it was a tremendous success for us. It became something that kids could buy for a couple of dollars less, with all the same accessories, a similar look, a similar size, a lot of interplay between Mattel and ourselves, and we just did an incredible job. And I was at home. My kids actually were about one of my sons was born in '74. The other one was born in '76. And in the '80s, one of our favorite things to do I can't remember which night, but it was a couple of nights a week, was to, watch wrestling on TV.
Absolutely.
I became a fan, and I mean, I really became a fan. I enjoyed it. And as I started watching it and saw the excitement, and the kids, and of course the time I spent with the kids, I said, there is something here. I said, these guys are real life superheroes. And I said, and whatever day that was, whatever moment that was, I made a couple of notes. I got to the office the next morning, which was in the city in the toy building. And at 9 o'clock, after I had done my due diligence and found out, how I could reach Vince McMahon, I called Vince's office and I told Vince who I was. I told Vince what I wanted to do. I said, I'm on my way up. I want to make a deal. Now, nobody at that point had called Vince about at wrestling. Vince is the furthest thing from his mind. He was busy gobbling up territories and spending a fortune.
Yes.
His dad was still around. I went up to a very small little office in Stamford, Connecticut. It was there wasn't even a receptionist out front. There was a desk and there was a door. And when I went inside, I knocked on the door. Vince came out with his wife, and we went into a conference room. And I told him my story, told him what I wanted to do. I offered him $25,000 up front, and I said I want the exclusive license to manufacture, distribute, and market at that time WWF Figures.
Yes.
Vince shook my hand. By the next day, he had a contract in his hand. I had pictures to begin development on, of course, Hulk Hogan, and the lawyers started finalizing the agreement. I started developing. At that time, there was no digital sculpting, so the sculpt of Hulk was being done by hand. I wish I still had that, because that would be worth a fortune.
Oh, my
because it was the first. It was that particular sculpt, which was done at a play, was the first ever iteration of a wrestler, a professional wrestler.
Right.
Okay. So over the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks, every week I was up with Vince, getting various different approvals on Hulk. At one point, Hulk actually came in, and he loved what he was seeing, because he was thrilled. Last thing he ever thought of was he'd have an action figure for himself.
Right.
So he, everything was going well, and then I remember about a month and a half after my first visit with Vince, I walk in, and Vince throws a Galoob catalog on in the conference room table, and he says, "Do you know these guys?" And I said, "Sure." I said, I know the Galoob family very, very well. I didn't have to ask why, because I was no dummy. Okay. And I just took it, and I walked out of there, went back to the office, told Marvin Azrak and Ezra Hamway, who, Azrak Hamway was the company that owned REMCO. Right. I said, believe me when I tell you, we got a problem.
Yep.
So, but I let it go. We kept developing. We spent a considerable amount of money. And sure enough, I got a phone call from Vince to tell me that they had decided that they were going to go with Galoob for action figures. And, unfortunately, I guess, that was the MO of Vince, and it was what it was. There's nothing I could do about it. However, I so believed in what I was doing that, again, did my due diligence, did my homework, started to recognize where these different, regional federations and associations were. I wanted to make sure I got to the most honest and most upstanding owner of any one of these associations. And as I talked to different people in the wrestling world, Vern Gagne's name was always mentioned. So I called up Vern, flew out to Minneapolis. This is about a week after the deal with Vince fell apart. And we obviously know the end of the story with Vince. He ended up dumping Galoob and ended up going with Jack.
Right.
So so here I am now. I'm in Minneapolis. I'm sitting there. I'm talking with Vern and I'm talking with Greg, and told them what I wanted to do. And you got to, one thing that most fans understand, but most novice fans don't, is that most of the big talent, if not all the big talent that came eventually to the WWE, were all trained, including Hulk, were all trained and Ric Flair. They were all trained and came through the AWA.
Right.
So other than Terry Bollea, who was Hulk Hogan, I had the opportunity to do all these guys, and we did our deal, and I said, okay, now I want to get in the marketplace before anybody. So,
yes.
Getting back to the Warlords, took my Warlords, made literally, I'm telling you, no changes other than deco and heads, and obviously ringwear and accessories. And I was in the market 6 or 7 months before Jax had a chance to even, start packaging. And the response that we got from our customers was overwhelming. The only retailer that just didn't believe in it, maybe because of their mores, or it was Walmart. It took forever to get them to buy the line, and they did. They were ecstatic. But our product we started with 6 or 7 guys, and I wanted to be different out of the box, so started doing tag teams and triple figures with managers and valets, grudge matches, and it was nonstop. And we got a good 4 or 5 years out of it until the AWA started running into trouble monetarily because Vince was stealing all of the talent. And I say stealing because he was just pumping money into these guys, and I don't blame them for leaving. That was their that's how they sustained themselves.
Sure.
It was through money. And all these guys, I could, and when I talk to Greg now about the talent that we're signing, I was really never aware, how big the arms were of Vern Gagne and the guys that they brought through there, and it was virtually everybody. I mean, Vern was, without a doubt, I used to hang out with Vern in Minneapolis, and he was a god out there. Everybody called him Champ. He was just, of course he died about 5-6 years ago. Just a super guy.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time with the wrestlers, after the matches, backstage, started to learn the business, of course, we talk kayfabe and all that kind of stuff, but, you really start believing everything you're seeing after a while. And you got to understand that Vern he was a technician when it came to wrestling. And, when he started, you had the storylines and all that type of stuff, but, the things that Vern could do and that he taught to the wrestlers that he trained were just unbelievable. And again, I met them all. Everybody that I signed, including, the Road Warriors, who we all know ended up in the WWE.
Sure.
I mean, Ric Flair, who I signed. I signed Rick. I had to go to a nightclub in New York to meet Rick because that's where Vern sent me. I had to go to a hotel. The Road Warriors were wrestling at Byrne Arena in New Jersey. At that time, it was Byrne Arena, and they basically were freelancers. They weren't signed by anyone. And I remember, and as God is my witness, I go to breakfast, and I'm a little guy. I go to breakfast, and there's Paul Ellering on one side, and then you got Animal and Hawk on the other, who were bigger than life. I mean, I don't even know how they got into the booth. They were so giant.
Sure.
But I get in, I sit down, and he says to me, there's only one thing that's going to make this deal work. And of course, I knew what it was going to be. And so he opens up a briefcase, and in this briefcase, I don't know, must have been 10 grand in cash. And I said, I get the message, and we signed. So I mean, I got stories like that I can tell you all day because.
And I'll tell you, that is what the collecting community absolutely loves to hear about. It's these inside scoop stories that we're never, ever going to know unless we talk to somebody like you. So you're sent to a nightclub to make the deal with Flair. You're sent to the hotel arena to work with the Road Warriors. I mean, those are just outstanding stories. What I still love about the AWA line is how much detail, and we're talking 1983, 1984, 84, the detail and the accessories, the fact that you guys went the extra mile for 1984 to put cloth accessories on these figures, every single one. Every single one. Then you bring in the managers. Then you bring in the valet precious. I mean, you guys had your finger on it, at a pretty early era when it comes to like, toys and likenesses and things like that. I mean, you guys were really doing current day stuff back then.
Well, what we did is the first thing we did is obviously is we focused. We did rotationally molded heads as opposed to hard plastic solid heads. Solid plastic solid head, which we're doing now, in Powertown. Obviously, it creates the ability for us to make the portraits, the heads as we call them, look much more authentic, much more realistic, and we nail it. We really nail it. Back in those days, I wanted to get in business. I wanted to get my product on the shelf. I made commitments to the Toys R Us's of the world, and so we did the rotationally molded heads. We tried to do initially as few accessories as possible, other than maybe belts, just to get the goods on the market. But once we had our taste of success, we started getting into anything and everything that we could add into the wrestling figure world, and that included. I just saw today, for example, on Facebook, in the AWA REMCO collection Facebook page, somebody picked up an original Ric Flair, with in a white robe, it looked like fur around it and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he got it at a flea market for $20. So probably sold for $500. So, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, then we got into all the plastic parts. With the Road Warriors, we started adding scrolls that included the storylines and interviews.
Yes.
I mean, we even one of the most sought after figures is Dick Worley.
Yes.
And Dick was a ref, and I asked Vern. I said, the funny part about it is I asked Vern. I said, I want to do a ref. He said, I'll get you Dick Worley. I didn't know who Dick Worley was. In fact, I told Greg about it. He didn't even remember who Dick Worley was. But Dick sold like crazy. Of course, we had a nondescript ref in there. I think he ended up being called Curly Brown or
That's
something
right.
like that.
Absolutely.
I don't even remember. Yeah. But, then we started doing the Royal Rumbles. And then what happened is I made a pitch from a marketing standpoint to Ezra and Marvin. I said, we got to go on television. I said that let's take the Royal Rumble. We'll put the ring in there. We'll put 6 figures. We'll do whatever we have to do to promote the line. And that was a great item. I mean, that was the Royal Rumble was a fantastic item, and we just kept coming out with, the Barbarian and Cologne. I mean, I'm sitting here. Remember, we did about 100 different figures. The last series we did, I think it was Matt Mania. I think it's still it's still the most difficult of the REMCO figures to get hold of. And let me answer a question to you before you even ask it, because I'm embarrassed as it is. I did not save one figure.
Oh yeah. Well, we said we would talk about that.
I got nothing in my basement.
Oh no.
Yeah, I did save I had an autographed. I had autographed Road Warrior figures. I gave them away to somebody who was a wrestling fan because he's a nice guy. And the only thing that I literally have left, other than what TK sent me, is I have an autographed. I got an autographed Rick Martel, and I have my son's wrestling belt. Yeah. And I don't even want it.
Oh.
Guesstimate what if I had kept a case of each. God only knows what that stuff is.
Oh, I'm telling you, it would have changed. It would have changed your life. I mean, I'm in this. I'm so involved in the collecting world. You mentioned your play set, your Battle Royal play set with all the guys. I'm looking at the box of the steel cage play set. That is a beautiful item. Your basic ring, the artwork on that ring is incredible. I love it. That's why this line is so many people's favorite line. Now, you mentioned your son, and I was clued into just one of the funnest stories. And again, this is what collectors do. Collectors look at boxes. We see kids in commercials, and we say, I wonder who the heck those kids are. Well, your son is forever a part of AWA Packaging. What did he do?
Well, basically, like anything else, my kids were in some of my. I mean, I've done over 300 toy commercials in my career, and I've had both of my boys, at different ages in my commercials. Scott was in a couple more than my son Brian, because Brian got older quicker as I was doing a lot of TV stuff. And but what happened was we were at we were at Madison Square Garden. And Rick Martel, of course, was, pretty much the perennial champion as long as I, was doing business with the AWA until he left and went to Vince. But he was there, my son was there, and I knew I was coming out with the belt. And, and Rick is just a super guy, really, really nice guy. And I said to him, look, I need to take a picture. We're going to be doing the belt, of which, you'll benefit by, because you'll be on the package, you'll be getting your royalties. Could I take a picture? So I took a picture of Rick with my son in his red shirt. And basically, the rest is history. We built that belt, plastic belt, fit almost any size kid. Yep. And we, I think one of the things I did, if I remember correctly, because I haven't opened in years, I set it up so that I could do you could actually hook the figures on the side of the belt, I think.
That's exactly what you did. I can remind you what you did. Yes, you. Thank
God, I still got a memory.
That's all right. Yeah.
And that was, when you forget about things like that over the years. I still have that. I have a pristine belt, sitting in my little man cave, my condo, and nothing really ever. I never did anything about any, because I've done so many toys. But what happened was about, and I don't want to jump ahead, but my son Scott was somehow, some way, somebody found out that he was on the package, and they contacted Scott. Scott joined the AWA REMCO group.
Yes,
and he. Unbeknownst to me, shared who his dad was. And, I didn't know. The last thing in my wildest imagination is I had this semi-celebrity status in the collecting world because of, I'm not Marty Abrams, and Marty is a dear friend of mine. But, I had this whole wrestling genre because, like the guys in my company, they call me the godfather of wrestling. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but I was the first guy who was out there.
Absolutely, you were.
What I did was, and I don't want to call it a fatal mistake, but I joined the AWA REMCO collection. I explained who I was and what I did, and I started getting bombarded with emails. And I said, "Oh boy, what did I do?"
Yep.
What did I do?
You ripped open a door, is what you did.
Yeah, but I also started finding out the value of my figures. And enjoyed the discussions that I had with some of these guys. I enjoyed watching TK do his weekly run on the figures and what these figures were selling for. I mean, there were a lot of stories that were shared. I would sit there and as they were talking, I'm instant messaging back and forth with TK and I think one of his other guys. And I'm saying, no, that's not the way it happened. Or, yes, that is the way it happened, but there were a couple of factors you had to keep in mind. Like, there's talks about variants and, why did Greg Gagne have two separate heads? And, why did this happen? Why was his hair brown? All of these kind of things. There's stories and reasons for everything that happened. And some people tend to make up stories, but, I was there. I lived it.
Well,
every day I lived it.
And again, that's what collectors do. We get so passionate about the product. I mean, I could ask 100 questions about the figures. AWA was a Minnesota territory. How come Carlos Colon and Abdullah the Butcher got into the fold? Things like that. But that would take us all night. But as far as being, your celebrity status, trust me, amongst these collectors, you and your son, who is immortalized in that packaging, are celebrities to us. Absolutely.
Right. I get it. I respect that. And I enjoy, I really, truly enjoy reliving a lot of this because it was so much a part of, my success, but more important, my life. And, I can remember running around on helicopters, traveling with the wrestlers, trying to get to certain places. Remember flying by helicopter down to Atlantic City when Vern was doing a really, really big event down in one of the major hotels. And, I would sit in on some of the pre-planning. And these guys became my friends.
Sure.
Jimmy Garvin and, but then again, I see some of these guys now I don't even recognize, and but they're super guys. That era, there's a lot of rumors and they talk about a lot of different. These were great guys.
Okay.
Even Slaughter was out there.
Sure.
So there were just so many. What I got to do for you one day is, and I will do this. I will get Magnum TA and Greg Gagne on your show, and they will tell you stories that you will just, they sent me last night a video, because I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we just signed Dr. David Schultz, okay?
Outstanding.
And, he sent the video to Greg last night. And I don't want to give it away, but he was being interviewed by Mean Gene, who was also discovered by Vern. And Mean Gene was cultivated by Vern, taught by Vern. His whole persona was built by Vern. And what happened was Mean Gene was interviewing David, and David said something. And I don't want to tell you what it was. I was rolling when I saw
I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Do you really think you do?
Oh, I do. Dr. D looking for a real woman.
Attaboy. Yeah. He sent me that, and that was when it was almost like a blooper because Mean Gene turned his back.
Yes.
I don't think he could, because Greg sent it to me last night. He says, "You're going to love this." And I just sent them, an LMAO.
Yes.
And then sent TH, and that's exactly right. I just, I couldn't believe. But these were, you got to realize too, Andre came through there.
Sure.
And Andre was like, it was incredible. It was an incredible time in my life. I could not be happier about getting back in it and reliving, especially with Greg. And TA has become a major. That's an incredible story.
Incredible story.
Yeah, TA has become a really, really good friend. He's just a great guy with a wealth of talent, a lot of stories. And between Greg and TA, the connections that I was just on the phone a day and a half ago. With 2 hours, I was on the phone with Medusa, and doing some planning. She's fantastic. She's brilliant.
Are you going to do females in the? Well, okay. So let's segue over. Let's segue over. You are back in the toy business. You and an AWA alumni. AWA, basically the son of the AWA. You and Greg Gagne have jumped back into the wrestling figure market with a group of with a line called Powertown. This is outstanding. I saw your first 5 or 6 protos, I think. And
right.
What you mentioned earlier, I was already going to mention. Your head sculpts, and I'm not just telling you this because you're on the phone. Your head sculpts are the best I have seen, period. Period. Better than Mattel. They are the best head sculpts that I've seen so far. Magnum TA looks incredible. Ted DiBiase looks incredible. The Stan Hansen figure is beautiful. Vern Luthez. We're excited about this line. How did this happen?
What happened was, I got to get back to my son again. Scott, he connects with TK. He introduces me to the group. I connect with them. And really when I started connecting, it was just because, I saw the name Remco. I just wanted to, what's going on? They had, maybe 1,500 members, in the group. And it wasn't until I saw what it wasn't until I saw what the AWA Figures were selling for that cost me, let's say they cost me $1 back in the day.
Right.
And we were selling them for $2.50 and they were retailing for for $4.99, $5.99. And when I saw that they were selling, in some cases $2,000, in some cases $1,000, in some cases $500, I said, whoa.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity there. So I hadn't spoken to Greg since his dad passed away.
Yeah.
And it had been 5 or 6 years. I was in the process of selling my business, and Greg was in the process of doing his thing. And so I reached out to Greg, left him a message. He called me right back within 20 minutes. And, we started reminiscing and talking. And I said, okay, we got to get back into business. I explained to him what was going on. And I said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll get 12 guys, and we will do a Kickstarter campaign, and we will do a quick in and out, make ourselves a substantial amount of money because it was direct to consumer. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but it was a lot of money.
Sure.
And I said, that's it. It'll be all over. Now, I had never done a Kickstarter. Started to learn about a Kickstarter. So we were going to do this, just the two of us. So he starts making phone calls. And within 2 weeks, we had close to 30 wrestlers under contract. And I'm not just talking about, we had guys like Dallas Page. We obviously had his father. We had Luthez. We had Stan Hansen. We didn't have DiBiase yet. But I said, you got 30 guys in 2 weeks? I said, we're going to do 12 guys. He said, they're calling me. And let me say this about Greg. Greg has such respect, number one, because of him as an individual and a person, and because of, the legend that his father created. Greg is so well respected in the toy industry. People are just flocking, and not because of me. I mean, my background helps credibility-wise, but they're flocking, and also because of TA. But when we started this, they were getting on board because of Greg. And we went from 30 to 60 to, right now we're close to 200. We had some major signings this week. Yes, we are doing females. We're doing, we've got them from every single organization. I mean, the big problem is that I told Greg, I don't want to do guys in the 2000s. I don't even want to do guys necessarily from the late 90s.
I'm with you.
I want to start at the beginning. Now we've got some other big announcements that'll be coming along, but I want to do the verbs. And I didn't know anybody but Vern. It's Greg, who taught me about, Kaniski, and I call him Kaniki, like from Greece. That's the only way I know, but he started telling me the stories about the Lutezes and the incredible rivalry. I don't want to call it grudge because those guys really respected each other. And I had the opportunity to talk to Charlie Thez, who was, Lou's wife, who's an incredible lady, really incredible lady. And the stories that she told me blew me away.
Of course.
Because and then we started working with, we signed Wahoo McDaniel.
Great.
And we started working with, with his wife. And, Tony Atlas. And I mean, again, we got 200 wrestlers. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Unbelievable.
But it really, and it's growing. I don't know how many we'll have when the Association's done. And every one of these guys has a story. Every one of them has a reason for their notoriety. I'll Well, I can't tell you everything because a lot of it is really, it's not that it's, I don't want to disclose it, is that I don't want the industry to know everything we're doing and how we're doing. Because we have guys that are signed to, one of the statements we made in our media release is that we had a ton of guys who deserve to be celebrated, and they deserve to have a figure done, and for whatever reason, they've just, never been done. And, and this is a very, very, very important part of why we did this. When we started signing these guys, and I started listening to some of the stories, and I won't point out who they are, but, like other major sports leagues, especially the guys from back in the day, no insurance, no pension, no 401ks, paid all their expenses. When they retired from wrestling, they had nothing. So one of the things that we are doing is we're going to give back to these guys, help the guys that need to be helped. It's kind of wrestlers for wrestlers because, we're going to put together, a portion of our profits are going to go to help and support wrestlers who need that help. And that was a big part why when Greg and I decided to blow this thing up and do what we're doing now and, introduce a whole new genre to the collecting public, I said, well, let's give back. If it wasn't for these, it's like Vern and Lou were like the Arnold Palmer, what Arnold was to golf, and Babe Ruth was to baseball. Without those guys, there wouldn't be Hulk Hogan, and, there wouldn't be the Ted DiBiase's, there wouldn't be the Randy Savages of the world. There was those guys. Vern started in 1947 on the Dumont Channel in Chicago. And, Luthez predated him a little bit, but there was no television. And, the Dumont Channel eventually became WGN.
Yes.
These were the first guys to go on TV. Then Vince Sr., started. Remember, in those days, all of these, these regional associations, everybody was friendly. Things started to turn ugly, I guess you could say, later on when all of these different associations started to get gobbled up. And I don't even want to go there. And then you take the Von Erich family.
Yes.
Okay. We've got all the Von Erichs. Great. From Lacey to Kevin to David to Fritz.
Mike.
And
Mike.
We got Michael.
Yeah.
We got Michael. And we got everybody. So, and they really never they've been celebrated. Even TA, by the way, TA has only had one figure done in his career.
And it only happened a few years ago.
Correct. And, but I will tell you this, that anything that we put in the market will never have been done the way we're going to do it. Now, what that means, a perfect example, I can take you right through all my guys. Of course, Vern and Lou were never done, okay? Right. But if you go to, like, Stan and Ted, again, we do our due diligence, we did our homework, our team found out, I said, I want to know everything about these guys, who they wrestled with, where they wrestled, and we discovered that, they were, they were Japanese tag team, heavyweight champions. Mm-hmm. And, Ted wore the whole outfit that Stan wore. So, that's the reason that we put these two guys together. Ted is thrilled because Ted has always been the $1 Million Man. And, we have a whole new approach there. They'll be shipped with belts. They'll be shipped with, we're adding hands to, our figures are going to be the ultimate figures in the marketplace. I honestly cannot wait for these to come out because I think you're changing the business again. And I love how you talked about some of the, not necessarily forgotten, but some of the guys that are not getting any mentions, and these are guys that paved the way. Magnum TA's story is an absolutely gut-wrenching story that hasn't been told. He hasn't been acknowledged. We see him come up at fan fests and autograph signings, but he's not acknowledged by the WWE. Stan Hansen is not acknowledged. Yes, Kerry Von Erich is acknowledged, but Kevin and Mike and David are not. And honestly, and I don't want to get too much into it because it starts to become opinion, but I think a lot of these guys don't want
to work with the WWE and Vince McMahon, and they don't want to sign their lives over to him, and they want a different option.
Again, I don't want to cast stones, but obviously, my initial, I've met Vince several times since then. In 19, I forget what year it was, sometime in the 90s, I did one of my last years at REMCO, I did a WWE rod hockey game.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we had Mean Gene was there. We did the commercial. So it's I don't hold any grudges with Vince. And as far as I'm concerned, the guy has really been successful. But what I'm most proud of is that when I started this thing or got into the wrestling business back in the 80s, in my wildest dreams, I would never think that almost 50 years later, or 45 years later, that this would still be going even stronger than it did when we started this whole idea from, back in, 1984. It's one of the most stabilized. It's almost like, they say that G.I. Joe is to boys' toys what Barbie is to girls' toys. But in many cases, so is wrestling.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe has gone up and down, in and out, had to change who they were. You had to address the political times. Wrestling has never changed, other than the individual talent, since we started this in 1984.
Well,
when REMCO came out with the first figures.
Exactly. Wrestling figures have been on shelves maybe with a 1-year hiatus, maybe, from 1984 till yesterday. They haven't left shelves, and honestly, I think they've overtaken G.I. Joe.
Absolutely.
There is no G.I. Joe for kids to watch anymore. There's no cartoon. There's no advertising. They've got some nostalgia pieces that came out, but those are marketed towards guys like me, not my 9-year-old. So
you're right. I'll give you one tidbit, which I really haven't shared with anybody.
Yeah.
That without telling you explicitly what we're doing, but one of the groups of guys, and you'll get this right away, that we will be introducing in the near future. We are going to introduce the wrestlers that made the champions, and I think you probably get.
Oh, I love that idea.
And these guys have never got their just due. These are the guys that wrestled 365 days a year. And the stories, that. In talking to these guys, most of which unfortunately are deceased, some of these guys, Greg would tell me the stories that these guys were guys who would come in and set up the ring, and then Vern would say, "Okay, you're on."
Look out for the name Jake the Milkman Milliman.
Yeah, Jake the Milkman, and Sodbuster, and whatever.
Kenny J. I'll go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'll tell you. I mean, I wanted to do something like that on this show too. I wanted to actually go and find those guys, and there is a guy that I have a little bit of a connection with. He was in the WWF. His name's Ken Jugan, and he's the guy that, like you said, he was the guy that was making the stars look like stars. And I wanted those guys on this show. I wanted to hear the backstage stories from those guys that don't have anything to gain by making up stories or embellishing or anything like that. So I think a figure line, I'm telling you, it's never been done before.
Correct. And, the plans that my thinking in my toy career has always been outside the box. And even when I had to, I actually had to, when I came up with, not to dwell on the Karate Kid.
Sure, great line.
I had to sell, my management when I was senior vice president of marketing at REMCO, and it took me months to convince them we had to do the Karate Kid. And they said, if you can get the deal, we'll do it. So a buddy of mine, his name is Les Borden, who he was vice president of licensing at Columbia Pictures, who for the longest time represented Marvel. That's how we did, we did our statues of Spider-Man. I forgot, I forget the name right now, but they were, there was these Spider-Man statues that had they had a monofilament coming out. They would climb. We did the same thing with Hulk. These guys didn't move.
Yes.
I mean, And Marty Abrams got so pissed off that we would, because we were knocking him off. And Marty is a dear friend. I love Marty. But so I had to fly out, and I had to meet. I remember I had a meeting. I had to meet with Jerry Weintraub, because Jerry was, the executive producer of Karate Kid. And I went in to meet with Jerry the day that he took over. He became president of United Artists. And I was sitting there with him and a gentleman who I think had come from NBC. His name was Tony Thermopoulos.
Okay.
And I convinced Jerry. Jerry, he loved it. And he said, by the way, and of course, I listened and said, well, that's great. He said, I'll tell you what, we're gonna have a soundtrack that may be bigger than the picture. And of course, Peter Cetera and everything, and it was. The soundtrack was huge.
Karate Kid Part 2.
But the only thing Jerry said to me was, he says, look, I can get you, I won't have a problem with Pat Morita, and I won't have a problem, getting you all the other likenesses of everybody else is in the movie, but the only one I may have a problem with is, going to be Machio. So I had to go. To the Columbia Pictures lot where he was shooting Crossroads. I don't know if you ever heard of the movie Crossroads.
Yes.
And I went to his trailer. I waited for him, and Ralph comes in. Nice guy. Looked like he was about 12 years old.
Exact. Still does.
He still does. And he comes into the trailer, and he's, very, very, a real gentleman, very, very polite. And I was there with his, with his agent, a woman, nice lady. And I explained to him what I wanted to do, and he said to me, I really appreciate it, but I don't want to be typecast. Of course, he is.
Oh, jeez.
Typecast as the Karate Kid. So I really had to think fast, and I said to him, I don't disagree, but it hasn't hurt Harrison Ford, who was Han Solo, and he thought about it for a second, and he says, you're right. And, he gave us the rights, and the rest is history. And, there are plans in that area, too. Sneak preview of that, of Karate Kid.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, so, and, who thought that Cobra Kai would be what it is, but, I'm a Karate Kid guy because of, and Pat Morita was unbelievable, and I remember I flew out to the lot when they were shooting because I had to pick out the gis for, that we were going to put on the figure, and I had pictures of myself, in the red gi. I think it was the red gi that he wore in the last scene.
Oh my goodness!
The fight scene. Yeah, that's a pretty cool picture I had. It was great, But getting back to, but I never, ever, lost my love for wrestling, and what we're doing now is, every day we're signing new guys, and every time I forgot I sent a couple of pictures to Greg today. One of them he's already got on board, and the roster that we have, and I'm not talking about, we got. I'll throw another one out. We got guys like Harley Race, okay,
wow,
and we got some. We got some major talent, and it is literally all because of Greg, and of course, now that TA is on board. And these guys, TA, he's a partner. He's an equity partner.
Okay.
And that's why I say wrestlers for wrestlers. And we've got the brilliance of Medusa working with us. She's out now in. Spoke with her the other day. She's now out there with. She's in Nashville working with Billy Corgan, working with the NWA.
The NWA.
Yeah, and I got another conference call with her next week, and she's gonna bring a lot to the table. We've even got the Nitro Girls that we signed.
Oh, fantastic!
It's just you got to look at the opportunities, and then of course you say, well, how are you going to merchandise? And I can tell you this without getting into it again. We've got our roster is very licensable. So there's going to be some very, very special things that are going to announce around licensing show in May.
Okay.
And some big things. And these wrestlers that have not been celebrated, these wrestlers that have not been celebrated, and these wrestlers that are due what they are due, they're gonna make some nice money. We're gonna do some nice things with them in a lot of different areas.
What's your best estimation on when we're going to get this first wave in our hands?
Well, we're gonna obviously we said we're gonna introduce it via Kickstarter in the spring. Our plan is to start shipping prior to Christmas of this year and get some of the product in their hands. I want to make one thing perfectly clear to anybody who listens. Okay, the only negative feedback. First of all, I mentioned that it's going to be 7-inch scale. They are going to be ultimate figures. Our figures are going to, from the standpoint of realism and authenticity, are going to be second to none. And there's always this question in the back of, I've heard it from the Cardonas and from some of these other podcasts, that the one thing that always scares them is Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not in this business. I didn't come back out of retirement to not ship something. Okay. So,
yes.
I'm fully committed to this, both monetarily and, I got everything in this. So there is absolutely, positively no way that this will not happen, because I guess that there's this stigma out there about Kickstarter that some guys get into it and they never reach their objective.
We never see the item.
Yeah, you never see the item. Not going to happen. I mean, we've done our P&Ls. We know what we can sell and who we can sell. We've heard from so many different people that are salivating to get this out there. First of all, our goal, the Kickstarter goal, there's a whole formula there. But, we'll blow that away in the first day or two, God willing.
Yeah.
So if anybody who's hearing this now, you can hear it from my lips to God's ears. There is no way that the Kickstarter, will not be successful. And if they want to keep up with what's going on, just go to relativityworldwide.com, and, register and, become a member of what we're doing. And we will keep everybody informed. We've got our own PR agency. Obviously now the brand is Powertown, and the tagline is very important. It's Powertown, where wrestling lives on, because these are the guys that, a lot of them are deceased. We're working with a lot of estates and a lot of the widows. And, wrestling lives on in Powertown. And, the Powertown brand is what, we're going to build. Relativity Worldwide is the parent company. I'm the managing member. The one guy that I didn't give credit to, and, because we moved on, and that is that those portraits, those sculpted heads were done by a gentleman by the name of Andy Frank.
Okay.
And Andy, I've known for a lot of years. Andy, until such time that the company was sold, he worked for Todd McFarlane doing similar work. And we've got an incredible team. It's just, and also thanks to guys like TK who helped guide us a little bit, from the standpoint of talent, from the standpoint of, what the collectors are looking for, and also guys like yourself. It's not like, I'm not the kind of guy where, I love doing things like this. I love talking to guys like you, and I learn too, And, by the way, this is, remember, I sold my company in 2018, and I built my business on, TV advertising. Now all of a sudden I got to build it on Facebook and
right. Right. So it's the
whole different world.
Sure it is, but you know what? I'll tell you, you have given us a gift. You've given us about 40 extra minutes of what I expected, and again, what a fantastic talk. What a great batch of information. You are bringing back Wrestlers for Wrestlers, like you said. We are bringing back the stars that we all grew up on through Powertown. We all can't wait to get our hands on these first 5 or first 6 figures, and then the countless amount of figures that are on the way. Guys, we have been talking to Steve Rosenthal, former vice president of REMCO, one of our favorite toy companies of all time, and now the guy who is going to be jumping back into the ring and bringing all of the stars of our childhoods back to life, action figure form. I can't thank you enough for the amount of time that you've given, the detail. I truly can't. It's been a blast. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Jason, it's been my pleasure, and I appreciate the time, buddy.
All right.
Stay safe.